Now, we talked about a lot of issues, including abortion, mass deportation, threats of political retribution against political opponents, and media outlets. We talked about that a good bit. And it's going to come as no surprise to anybody who watches this show, has watched it over the past year or over the past decade, that we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of issues.
The woke lefties are furious, and their ire is aimed directly at two of Donald Trump's harshest critics, Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski of Morning Joe on MSNBC. More specifically, they're upset that Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski visited Donald Trump last Friday at his home in Mar-a-Lago. With that, let's watch Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski try to avoid cancellation by their woke audience after kissing the ring of Donald Trump.
Over the past week, Joe and I have heard from so many people, from political leaders to regular citizens, deeply dismayed by several of President-elect Trump's cabinet selections, and they are scared. Last Thursday, we expressed our own concerns on this broadcast and even said we would appreciate the opportunity to speak with the president-elect himself. On Friday, we were given the opportunity to do just that. Joe and I went to Mar-a-Lago to meet personally with President-elect Trump. It was the first time we have seen him in 7 years.
So these two have been very high on my list of media elites that I can't stand for a long time, specifically Joe Scarborough. These two spend every night making wild accusations about Donald Trump, even provably false ones long after they've been debunked. I remember as recently as last week, Joe Scarborough suggesting that Donald Trump threatened to put Liz Cheney in front of a firing squad. Before we get too far in this clip, I want to make sure we all remember exactly who these two are. Joe Scarborough once said that while he appreciates that some news outlets want to be objective and report the news that way, that you can't do that with Donald Trump because he's a special case. Did you hear what I just said? He was chastising journalists that reported objectively on Donald Trump. That's the level of his TDS. Oh, and Mika, don't think I've forgotten about you. Right before the election, Mika Brzezinski went on The View complaining, as usual, how Donald Trump is a monster and will end our democracy. And no BS, she was literally about to cry over an election that hadn't happened yet. People get their news from these people. I don't know what's going on. What an embarrassment. These two are infected with some of the worst Trump derangement syndrome I've ever witnessed in my entire life. Anyway, let's see what Joe has to say. Let's get back to the video.
Now, we talked about a lot of issues, including abortion, mass deportation, threats of political retribution against political opponents, and media outlets. We talked about that a good bit. And it's going to come as no surprise to anybody who watches this show, has watched it over the past year or over the past decade, that we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of issues, and we told him so.
What we did agree on was to restart communications. My father often spoke with world leaders with whom he and the United States profoundly disagreed. That's a task shared by reporters and commentators alike. We had not spoken to President Trump since March of 2020, other than a personal call Joe made to Trump on the morning after the attempt on his life in Butler, Pennsylvania. In this meeting, President Trump was cheerful, he was upbeat, he seemed interested in finding common ground with Democrats.
Hey, if you like watching videos like this one, like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
On some of the most divisive issues. 5 years of political warfare has deeply divided Washington and the country. We have been as clear as we know how in expressing our deep concerns about President Trump's actions and words in the coarsening of public debate. But for nearly 80 million Americans, election denialism, public trials, and January 6th were not as important as the issues that moved them to send Donald Trump back to the White House with their vote. Joe and I realize it's time to do something different. And that starts with not only talking about Donald Trump, but also talking with him.
So who's going to watch these two anymore? We know that the left eat their own. If you don't fall in line 100%, and these two have been at the front of the line of falling in line with every single leftist talking point, if you don't conform, they will cancel you, chastise you, badmouth you, and kick you out. As far as I know, anyone who's relevant on the right can't stand these two. And based on their rhetoric, their audience has to be filled with the most nasty, judgmental liberals you can imagine. So like I said, the left eats their own. So the left is now going to try to cancel them. The right can't stand them. Who's going to watch their show other than people like me that just like to make fun of woke idiots? Is their show's entire purpose now going to be for clip farming? And can we talk about Donald Trump, and even at his advanced age, being able to be the bigger man and grow? This is not a guy who's known for letting go of grudges. But to my understanding, he wanted them there. He wanted to bury the hatchet. He acknowledges the importance of a free press and wanted to find some common ground. While people on the right can argue whether taking this meeting was a good idea or not, you can't argue that the move shows a lot of character for this man who's been through everything. And these are two people that directly contribute to the dangerous rhetoric that puts him in harm's way. So if these two had any self-awareness, this entire segment wouldn't be about them and their feelings. It would be about how grateful they were that they were able to have a one-on-one with the most famous person in the world and the president-elect, an opportunity barely anyone has. Instead, it's all about them and how they feel. They should have just allowed for 2 minutes to talk about the grace that Donald Trump is showing by even being in the same room with them and how magnanimous he is. I mean, the right can argue about whether this was a good idea to have this meeting or not, but I got to say, I'm really impressed with Donald Trump's willingness to forgive. Let's get back to the video.
Think about this. Of the 150 million votes cast, Donald Trump got 50%. Kamala Harris got about 49%. So I don't know. Seems to make sense for leaders of both parties to seek common ground, if it's possible at all.
So let us know in the comments, what do you think is going to happen? Will the left cancel these two and get them out of our lives forever? Please, sweet baby Jesus, let that happen. And why are they so interested in meeting with Donald Trump now? I don't have the answer because I don't believe the reasons they're giving. Is it simply to kiss his butt? Is it to stay relevant? Please let us know in the comments. I'm just uneasy about this story. While I genuinely admire Donald Trump's ability to forgive, this whole thing just reeks of weirdness. Maybe you guys can offer some insight, or you're seeing something that I'm not. But again, it's the third time I've said it. Let us know in the comments what you think. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.